This time on shift points. Let's get the Galaxie running. So one thing we talked about last time was lug studs. These lug studs, I got knocked out of the rear of this thing. These are about half to an inch too short. They were only about halfway engaging the lug nuts that we had for this thing. So I got online and was able to find them. We called the Napa store initially, but was never able to find anything. Just, it's so hard to look in the books and stuff up there and kind of figure it out. As me and Bobby were talking about it yesterday, just kind of how difficult it is to kind of find that stuff in the books. But I found a set of these which have the proper knurling on them, the right size on them, and these should go right back in place. The thing is they're like 3 inches long, which are really way too long. But Dad's already started working on these. We're going to get all these cut down. We're going to add some length to them, and I'll show you kind of what we end up with. So you can see here, this is the stock lug stud that we knocked out. This is the one that we ordered and how long it is. And this is how much Dad took off of it. He's already taken this to the belt sander and got that cleaned up. So now that all that's, took about 7/8 of an inch off of it, he said. So that'll be perfect. So now I'm going to take this over there, put it in, see if it'll go in. Then I'm just going to put a lug nut on this thing and hit it with an impact and get that to pull that knurling into the axle. The reason that we're kind of doing this is because we're trying to get out of having to pull all that brake hardware back off and get these lug studs in. If we had to pull the axles, of course we're going to take the caliper, the rotor, we have to pull everything off and then pull the axle back out again. It'll be like the third time we've had to pull the axle to do this. So we think with this length we should be able to get that put up in place and then, like I said, use an impact and pull it up how it's supposed to be. So we're back over here at the rotor now. Here's the cut off one that we're going to put in here. So I'm going to get this. Hopefully this is going to go in place. Yeah, so like that. So we just put this on the outside and kind of pull out on the rotor a little bit. That gets that in place. What we'll do, Dad was just saying, we'll take and put a lug nut on this thing, put the flat side toward the rotor, put a washer on it, and then just put some anti-seize on the splines and get that thing put in place.
Sounded like it hit right there.
It did, yeah. Okay, so we got these lug studs in. They look really great. I think they're going to be good. Even if there's a little hanging out, that's no problem because with the hubcaps that we're running on these things, it's going to completely cover them anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But those look really good. That worked perfectly, getting the using that lug nut and getting that to pull that through. That worked really great on it. We just put anti-seize on the knurls themselves and put anti-seize on the lug studs while we run the lug nut down on them, and changed the lug nut a handful of times throughout the process to make sure nothing crazy happened. So those look really good. So we got the new collectors that I ordered that had the straight pipe. I told you guys we needed some that were going to be straight instead of the angle that the other ones that came with these headers had. So these came in yesterday. And Dad got to looking at them, and if we put this up onto the flange that came with it, this would actually overlap into the hole, so you couldn't even actually get the bolts through this. So we went ahead and kind of indexed that a little so that we can get this in, so the bolts will actually line up like they're supposed to. So I'm going to get under here now and get this bolted up in place. And what we're gonna do, Tom has been nice enough, he told us that if we would get these bolted up and kind of come up with some templates using some welding wire or something, that we could come up there and he would bend us a couple of pieces to get us started. I told you we wanted to get a little exhaust on this thing before we tried to drive it. So he's gonna do that, and hopefully, theoretically, if we do what we're supposed to right, he can use these existing pipes when we take it up there to get it going. So anyway, so I'm gonna get this collector put on, and then we'll get some templates made and go up there and get him to bend us some tubes. So we went up to Tom's, but he wasn't there today. It wasn't open, so we went to the O'Reilly's right up the street here, up the road in Mars Hill, and they had a couple different pieces. So that's the collector that we already had. They had these bends and these turn downs, and these actually ended up working perfectly on both sides. You could use this and kind of rotate them in the right position, and got us everything that we needed to get it to him for like 40 bucks or whatever. So that's going to get us up there. So I'm going to get under here, get this one on and kind of lined up. Actually, I'm going to get the other side. Yeah, get this one on, get it lined up, make sure we got it right. I'll mark it a couple places to make sure that this is how it needs to be. And then Dad's going to just tack these on so that we can get it up to the exhaust shop. So I'm going to get under here, get these rotated, get them put in place, and then we can get them tacked up. Okay, get everybody under here. So you can see kind of what we ended up doing. This is the driver's side. Then right over there is the passenger side. Everything's pretty much cleared. And then we can go ahead and try and put a little antifreeze in this thing and go ahead and try and start it. So we started to fill this thing up with antifreeze, and you can see that right here the radiator appears to be leaking out of somewhere. All the hoses are tight and everything. Out of the bottom of it somewhere, this thing has decided to start dripping. So that's pretty much put an end to getting it started. So now we got to figure out what happened here. All right, yesterday we went to, or the other day we went to fire up the Galaxie for the first time with all the new stuff that we've done to it, and we started putting antifreeze in it and found a pretty extensive leak in the radiator. So it got to a certain point and it was just nearly a pool, almost a steady stream coming out of this thing. So I called the guys up at Champion. They were very nice, and they got it. They said, we'll get it taken care of, we'll get you a new one on the way, but it'd probably be Monday before they could get it sent. Well, we were just curious to see kind of what was going on with this and what went with that. These radiators at Champion do have a lifetime warranty. And they said that most likely with what was going on with this, that it would just be a field scrap. They wouldn't actually want the radiator back. Like I said, what we ended up doing, we just shut off all the lights in the shop and took this flashlight that we have and just kind of shined it up into the outlet here and then kind of blocked it off best we can. And if you can look right there, if I can get this to focus, oh yeah, you can see this actually had a little spot in it that didn't look like, I mean, you'd have never noticed it. It wasn't like it was shipping damage or anything like that. I think it might have been whenever it was put together. You can see that little ray of light coming out there, right there in that tube. And then, yeah, you can see that it goes away whenever he pulls the flashlight out. And now it's back. So what we're going to do, just to get us through, and since they're not going to want this back, we're going to mix up a little batch of JB Weld and put in there, just kind of patch this up, and at least get it to where we can try and get the timing set and do all that stuff that we wanted to do. So we're gonna mix up some now and get that put in place. Dad's calibrated eyes gets equal parts of mixture of JB Weld out here on his piece of cardboard here. So we're going to let that stuff set up, do what it's supposed to do, and hopefully we'll have a functional radiator tomorrow. So Dad got started before I ever got here today. He got this thing filled up with some water, and he's got it propped up so that all that water's kind of sitting right in this corner that we had putting the JB Weld on, which is actually on the back side here. But you can see that this is all completely dry. So our little field repair here has taken and worked just exactly how we wanted it to, which is great. So that means that he's already got the fan shroud back on it too. So now I can go ahead and drop the water out of it, drop this thing back in place. We can hook up the hoses, plug the fan back in, a couple zip ties, and we're ready to get this thing started today, which is just excellent. So I'm gonna get on it now. All right, we've got all the hoses back connected, got the radiator in place, fans hooked up, upper and lower hoses are together. We're gonna run it like this for a little while just because we don't 100% know when we're gonna get the other radiator, so we're gonna run it. So we're gonna get this in it and it'll finally be time to start this thing after multiple months. I don't remember when we started working on this again. I'll have to go back and check, but it's been a little while. Line it up. All right, okay. We are getting ready to fire this thing up. We got all the antifreeze in it, all that's good. We've got the timing line hooked up to it. We've got the voltmeter here. A couple things we want to do first off. We're going to try and fire it up, see how it does, make sure everything sounds right, make sure it's at least close enough in time. Everything should start, which we're certain that it is. Want to make sure all that's good. Do a quick leak test, make sure there's nothing leaking on this thing, any fuel or anything like that. And then the other thing we're going to do is check the timing, make sure the timing is good, and then the other thing is I want to check and make sure our alternator is putting out voltage. We're going to do that pretty quickly. Once we get it started, gets just a little heat in it. It says sometimes you have to kind of excite these alternators, get it above 2,000 RPM or so. So when it gets a little heat in it, we can kind of rev it up, make sure that that's excited how it's supposed to be, and then that should let us know that that alternator is putting out like it's supposed to. So now I think we can go ahead and get this started. We've got a fire extinguisher over here. We've got the battery cable is loose, so if anything happens, we can pull the battery cable. We've got a fire extinguisher for all that stuff, so we should be ready to go. All right, you ready?
I think so.
All right, we'll go start it.
I think so, son.
All right, here we go.
Good. Wait a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Ready?
Yep. Spins counterclockwise. Like the timing's retarded too far. Spins counterclockwise.
You need to.
I'm gonna go clockwise.
Yep. So if you couldn't hear that, what was that?
Probably gonna have to move that distributor.
A tooth.
Probably.
Okay.
Try it again.
All right. So Dad just said that if you couldn't hear him there, said that the timing was too retarded, so he advanced it some. We might have to move the distributor a tooth to get us a little more adjustment in it, but we're gonna see if it'll start now.
Hey, let's check the wiring. Make sure we got this thing wired.
Okay. All right. That's it. So we're gonna check the plug wires real quick. Just double check and make sure we've got the firing order right. We've quadruple checked this, but we're gonna do it again real quick.
This is number 5. That's number 5. 5, 6, 7, 8. This is number. Wait a minute. That's number 1. Is that number 1?
That's number 1.
Is it tied to number 1 plug?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And then 5.
5.
That's the front one over here.
Yep.
Next.
4.
Okay, that's number 4.
4, and that's running to number 4 over there. Yep. 2.
All right, number 2.
2's right here. It's running to. Yep, that's running number 2 over here. 6.
Is number 6, and it is
second one over there.
Second one, yes, it is.
Good. Okay.
Wait a minute, yes, it is.
3. 3's running over here, and it is run to number 3. Yep. 3. 7. Should be second to last over there.
7. Yes.
And 8.
And 8 is right there.
Okay.
Okay. That's
All right.
7, 8. That's it.
Timing was right. All right. Sorry. The firing order was right. We had everything wired right. All right.
I retarded the timing.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
The tightness all under the belt.
Round 3. Got the belt tightened. checking the time in here. Here's it, leave it running. Plumb off the scale. Like low?
Like high.
Oh, like high.
It's going. Crank it again.
Okay.
If it will.
Okay. Oh, do we? I tightened the P out of them. Oh yeah, it's that back one. It's coming out of the carburetor.
It's coming out of the carburetor.
Yep.
It's pouring out of the freaking carburetor. I mean, pouring out of the carburetor.
Yep. I just tightened them too. Pouring out of both sides of it too. Alright, Dad, got this thing took apart. See anything obvious?
Yeah.
Right there, I saw it on the, right there. Hell no, never mind, I thought I saw it. I'm just wishful thinking. Look okay?
It had to be leaking.
I felt like it was absolutely dripping out of that thing.
That's what I'm saying, huh? The check valve looks fine.
Unless it was just running down from that fitting on the fuel line. And it was just happening to be pooling up there, I don't know.
It's a flashlight.
Okay. So Dad's getting it put back together. Put a new accelerator pump in it. Put a new gasket on this float bowl. And got a new gasket to put on the fuel line itself. On the fuel fitting for the fuel line, I should say. Over here.
It's on it.
It's on it right there. So yeah, you can see there. So it's a little thicker gasket than what was there. So we're hoping maybe that's going to get it sealed off. We're still not 100% sure. We never really found anything wrong with the accelerator pump. So kind of just shotgunning some gaskets here. This thing's set for probably, I think when
the gasket's a little questionable right there around where the accelerator pump goes.
Okay, gotcha.
But I don't know.
I'm not sure on it. So this thing's set for, he said, when I bought it, I got it off Marketplace. I think he said it had set for 3 or 4 years just in the box. So it didn't have any fuel in it, best we could tell, or didn't seem like it at all. And that's what he said it hadn't been. So anyway, but yeah, so we're going to put this thing back together and just keep going. All right, explain to everybody why it was backfiring, or why we think it was backfiring?
Well, I had the vacuum advance hooked up, but I hadn't hooked the port, so I don't know if that's what's going on, or maybe the carburetor was leaking the flow is too high, or carburetor's leaking so bad. It don't look like it's. I don't know exactly.
Okay.
It sounded like it had fuel, excess fuel. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Power's going off. We've had some issues with the power today.
It's ripping right out of the accelerator pump.
What the heck?
Nothing's. Well, no, I don't know. It looks like it may be.
No, I think it's actually coming out of that fitting again.
That's what it looks like. That's a brand new gasket.
Yep. Well, no, it's not coming out of that fitting, I don't think. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Ready?
Yeah.
Still leaking.
Oh, yeah. It ain't made a bit of difference. It's still just
So much for having new things. Yeah, you can see the steady drip here.
Oh yeah, it's pouring out of it.
So if you look closely, when that is, if you'll watch this right there, that fitting, watch how it goes up and down, back and forth, so you can see how screwed up it is. So when it goes and seats on the carburetor, there's a massive gap on one side, and it's closed off well on the other. So that's where our leak's coming from, is right there. We got the lights are still off here, but we ran up to O'Reilly's and got a new fuel line. I'm gonna figure out something to do with that one there as far as getting a return on it or something. But anyway, we wanted to go ahead and at least see if this thing would fire up now. See if we can get this stuff, everything checked on it. So I'm going to ease over here and get the switch started up, and Dad's gonna watch it. First, I'm going to watch it, make sure it's not leaking fuel out of this one, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Leaking?
Of course, leaking out of both of them now.
From the line or from the fittings? Okay.
Yeah.
But before I got here today, Dad took the fuel line that we got from the O'Reilly's and he cut the ends of it off and shortened it up here. So not only did he cut and shorten these, he also re-flared the ends of them. So he took our flare tool and put on it and got these things re-flared so that they should seat in here better and hopefully keep them from leaking. He finally got it to where it would fit and clear all the linkage and everything over here. So now we're going to try and fire this thing up and see if this one leaks. So we got everything hooked back up. We're going to, hopefully if this doesn't leak, then we can kind of proceed like we were planning to yesterday.
Right.
almost 3,000. Let me check the alternator. Alternator's working.
Charging, what's the
14.6.
Right.
We were at 12.7 yesterday before we started. Excellent. You want to let it get a heat on it and let it see if the fans come on?
Yes. That'd be good. That's at about, that's at 12 degrees on the initial.
12 initial, okay.
Going to 36, so that's 3,000. And you stop. That's back on road. 12 and 36. It's actually advancing further than what they said.
So let's go past 18.
12 and 36. It's advancing 24 degrees on the mechanical.
Okay. One thing we found right away is this bracket is definitely not stiff enough to hold this alternator. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this is just flopping. Yeah, you can see it there. And we've already trying to figure out a way to get that fixed. That cannot live like that. That'll definitely break at some point. But hey, it's running. First time in months now that it started running. It sounds really good. It's really, really fast. Really, really fast. So we're gonna work on that a little bit here. We're waiting for this thing to come up to temperature so that we can see if the fans are gonna come on like they're supposed to. Gauge came on, or the fans came on. The gauge was about 3/4 of the way up the gauge. They've been running for a little while now. Let's see. Okay. Let's see when these cut off and where the gauge goes to. They're off. They just turned off. Yeah, it does. Great. Perfect. Well, this thing has started so far on the initial checks of everything we've done. We found a few little things, but everything's working. Alternator's working. The fans work and cool it pretty darn quickly. I'd say they turned on and turned back off in maybe, yeah, less than a minute, I would say. Carburetor's not leak. There's a very small little leak back there on the back part of that fuel line, so we can tighten that some more and see if we can get that fixed. So, like I said, initially, sounds really good. The motor sounds happy. So yeah, it's really rich, really, really rich. And plus, we're about to suffocate from carbon monoxide. We got a fan here, but it wasn't enough. All right, I think that's gonna wrap us up for this week. We got this thing started for the first time. Dealt with some junk parts. Kind of deal with that. Seems like all the time now, but we can at least we're just really, really close to getting this thing to where we can drive it. So next week we're gonna take this thing on the road. We're really excited about it. If you guys don't mind, click that subscribe button when it pops up in the middle. And if you haven't already, follow us on social media. We're putting stuff up pretty much every day. When we go to events during the middle of the week or whatever we end up doing, we try and put up videos as we go so you can follow along with us while we're doing that. So if you haven't done it, do it. Click that subscribe button. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining.